Hey you guys, welcome back. In today's video, I want to talk about the buck that I got this fall. That's this big old boy right here. I want to talk about the 3 key steps that I took in order to connect with this rascal. But before I dive right into it, I do just want to say there's probably 100 or more different ways that you can kill these whitetails, and so I'm by no means trying to say that this is the only way or that you have to do it my way. That's not who I am, and we all know that that's not the case. There's all kinds of different ways to connect on these things, but these are just the steps that I took this year. This is the method that I use, and I just want to summarize that with you guys and kind of run through the 3 key concepts that I used that I truly believe led me to be able to connect on this guy. This past fall, late summer 2021, my wife and I were fortunate enough to be able to buy 20 acres here in Minnesota, and so I know a lot of you out there have been following along with my videos and watched a lot of the property improvements that I've made over the last year. But this fall was the first year that I had my first chance to actually hunt on it. We built a house on the 20 acres last winter, and so it's a long story, but I didn't have time to actually hunt this property until this fall. So want to run through kind of those 3 key concepts with you guys here. The first one is getting a really high quality food source on the property. So when I bought this place, there were no food plots on it. There were deer around here, but I knew that if I was going to have consistent action and consistent success, I need to have the best food in the neighborhood. And there is another food plot about 3/4 of a mile from my house that I know of, and there's also some hay fields. So I had a little bit of competition here, but I was still able to get that dynamic food source that pulled the deer in. And I made a video on this, but earlier in the summer, my brassicas that I planted got completely demolished, completely eaten off by the deer. It was unbelievable. I had never seen such heavy browse pressure before. We do have a lot of does around my house here, and those does were just setting up shop out in my food plot and absolutely mowed off those brassicas. And so what I did was I pivoted really quickly once I saw the damage that was being done, and I overseeded with winter rye. And I'm actually going to make another video on that. I made one this summer to show the growth on it and how I was able to save my food plot with rye, but I'm going to make another video on it to show what it's doing now under the snow and what type of activities out there. But the point here, you guys, is that at all costs, I made sure that I had a highly attractive food source. That original brassica plot was a total failure. It was a total loss. So rather than accept the loss, I pivoted quickly and overseeded with rye. And that really helped rejuvenate the plot, and it put something green back out there for the deer to be attracted in my property again. That was the first key concept, and the order here matters, and in order of most important. And to me, that starting with that food plot was the most important thing I could have done on my property. And the other key that I'll throw in on that is that it was an undisturbed food plot. I got a lot of buddies who food plot, and I've done this myself, where you end up, there's such a temptation to want to hunt on the food plot. You end up scaring the deer off, you educate does, things like that. I took painstaking care this year, you guys, not to spook deer on that plot until actually the night that I harvested this buck with my bow was the first night that I actually hunted on the food plot. And I had hunted a handful of times before that, but I was back off the plot far enough with plot screen in place that I could get down at the end of the night and sneak back to the house without clearing the field, the food plot. So it wasn't just having a food plot, it was having an undisturbed food plot. And to me, that was so important. Again, first night I sat actually on the plot is when this guy came out, and I'll talk a little bit more about why I think he came out that night later on. But so that first key concept, the first key step that I took was having a high quality, undisturbed food source on my property. The second key step that I took in harvesting this buck was the property improvements that I made in the bedding area. And I think this was really important, and I made a video on this 20 acre whitetail property, I think I called it. I'll link it somewhere up here. But I went in and made precision pocket cuts around the 20 acres in the remaining woods that we had. We put the house down in one corner of the property, we put the food plot up in the other, and then on one side I put in these precision pocket cuts, as I was calling them. Basically that was me this time last winter. I went out there with my chainsaw and started dropping some of those great big aspen trees in there, because when we bought this place, the woods was really mature, really large diameter trunk trees, incredible canopy and overstory. You know, it was one of in areas of the woods you could just scan and look, and you could see, you know, from this side of the property over here to this side over here, and it wasn't good. And so now we had some areas that were thicker than that, but you know, when you get those big aspen clones, those real mature aspen clones, they can just stifle all of that understory growth. So I went in, I made those cuts, and I left the logs crisscrossed on top of each other, and I made it as jumbled as possible. So I intentionally dropped all the aspen trunks inwards on themselves in a circle, so that the trunks just stacked up and piled up and made a huge jumbled, tangled mess. And I did that strategically on the south side of my food plot where our woods was, in the hopes that I was going to create just for sure some bedding right there on the south side of the food plot. And then I, you know, positioned my stands accordingly for the wind. But I really think that was important. I think I was able to hold more deer on my property and stack them in that way. And again, the other key here, you guys, is it was undisturbed. So I have not walked through that part of my property, the 10 acres on the one side of my property where I made these precision cuts. It's even a little bit more than that. It's maybe closer to 12, 13 acres in total, plus the neighbors 20 on the other side of me. They have a whole bunch of woods. They just have their house in one corner, so my woods adjoins with theirs, and they're an older retired couple, so I had the luxury that they're not out there, you know, with dirt bikes ripping around on their woods. That was just a calm, quiet woods contiguous with mine. So we had probably I would bet around a 20-acre patch of pretty thick woods with the pocket cuts that I made and just the brushy side that they own next to me. There was about 20 acres of pure undisturbed sanctuary in there, and I never went in there, you guys, like not even once. I didn't even walk through there from, I don't know, I'll say middle of the summer at least, or even earlier than that. It might have even been early summer. I never once walked through those pocket cut areas, or, you know, my neighbors, I don't even think they went back there at all last summer. And I think that makes a big difference. So that's the second key step that I took. And I think it's that important on these whitetails to feel comfortable bedding on your property. You know, I didn't make these things up. I didn't invent this. You know, I'm just saying, you know, these are the steps that I took. And so number one, it was undisturbed food adjacent, and number two was adjacent to undisturbed bedding. And I enhanced that bedding and made it a lot thicker and a lot nastier and a lot more appealing for a whitetail. So that was the second step that I took. The third step that I took was I waited until the conditions were just right to go out and actually sit on the food plot. This guy had been pretty elusive. I had a few pictures of him later in the summer, and then he disappeared throughout most of the fall. Well, then he suddenly reappeared one day, and I actually didn't even have that high of hopes of actually seeing this deer, but sure enough, the night he came out was a big cold front night. And so that was the day that the storm front had just blown through, and now we had that cold northwest wind coming in back behind the front. That was the night I sat out there. That was the night he came out and I arrowed him. So I don't have any footage of it. I don't film my hunts anymore. I actually did when I was younger. We had some fun with it, my brother and I and a buddy, but it is a ton of work and it has cost me some big bucks, and so I quit doing it. So kudos to those guys out there that are filming their whitetail hunts. It's a ton of work and it adds a lot of risk to your hunt, but I'm done with that. I just like showing you guys these videos and running through this stuff with you. But that was the third key step that I took was just restraining myself, showing restraint on my property, not sitting that food plot until the night was perfect. And you know, it was just the right conditions. And it takes a lot of restraint. You know, being a gung-ho bow hunter, I wanted to get out there and just sit out there, you know, but I exercised restraint, and I really was careful. I hunted way back off of the plot, like I said, and I hunted very sparingly in the first place. And so I was able to let the deer live on my property, use my food plot, living under the illusion that they were not being hunted. And then that night that the conditions were just right, I went out there, none of the deer were aware, and I was able to harvest the largest buck that I had on camera back there. So those were the 3 key steps that I took. It was undisturbed food, adjacent to undisturbed bedding, and then finally it was showing restraint until the conditions were just right. So again, there's probably about 100 or more different ways you could kill these whitetails. I really had a lot of fun this year taking my new property, transforming it into a whitetail property, and getting to set it up with the food, the bedding, my deer stand locations, all that. I got to start really from scratch and hunt it myself just the way I wanted to. So it's really been a bit of a dream come true in that sense. I don't know that I'll be able to do this every year on the property. We'll see. But we really had fun with it, my wife and I. We get a lot of other enjoyment out of this property too throughout the year. So I hope you guys had success in terms of having a fulfilling fall. That's the most important thing, you guys. Shooting these bucks and getting a nice chocolate horned rack like this is great, but that's really second to having a fulfilling hunt, catching up with your family and your friends and spending that quality time with your family and friends. That's the most important thing, and that's something that I've been chasing in my hunts and in my hunting career a lot more so, especially the older I get, a lot more interested in a fulfilling hunt more so than just inches of antler and things like that. The bucks come, these are a byproduct of a successful, fulfilling hunt, and you know, I hope you guys were able to experience that, whether you filled your tag this year or not. Your hunt's success and your fall's success is first measured by how fulfilled you are as a hunter and as a person, and I hope you guys were able to experience that this year. I'm going to enjoy this. I've gone many a year without filling a tag, so I know the feeling well. So the years where you get a good buck, it's nice to really soak it in and enjoy it. I'll leave it there. I hope you guys had a safe and fulfilling fall. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. If there's any certain videos you want me to do this next year on the property, I got some other cool ideas in mind. So with that, till next time, take care.